Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, RB. I do feel a little bit like an imposter standing here, but it is a pleasure to give the Northern Ireland report as Tom Black's deputy. I was actually looking back at one of Tom's previous speeches, and he used the line, "We are now 2.5 years without a functioning government in Northern Ireland. This has added further pressures and restrictions on what we can achieve for our members." That was 2019, and it tells you all that you need to know that we're back in the same position yet again. We've no functioning government for the past year, a health service under more pressure than it has ever been, with practice contract handbacks, huge ED waits, an inability to discharge patients once they're in hospital, and waiting lists that now stretch many years. That's right, there are many years. The average waiting time for a first consultant-led appointment in orthopaedics is several years at best, and that's before you even go for surgery. The stress on our workforce is huge, and not only are we being held responsible on the front line, but also often accountable as well in the absence of any politicians. It is utterly disgraceful. To add to this, we have a close neighbour, a European neighbour that is pushing very hard on transformed healthcare and is targeting significant increases in their doctor numbers with very much better terms and conditions than we have. Without a plan to retain doctors working in Northern Ireland, there's a risk right now, and we already see it in many of our border services, but also a risk for the foreseeable future that we will simply lose more and more doctors to our nearest neighbour. The lack of an executive has led to a catastrophic budget threatening all services in Northern Ireland. Every department is facing cuts of between 5 and 10%, and every branch of practice will be affected. Alarmingly, we have been told that there is no money available for any pay award for any member of healthcare staff this year. This at the time of sky-high inflation, huge cost of living pressures, and everything that we all know so well. Even worse than that, any Barnett consequential of any increase in the rest of the UK will simply be used in Northern Ireland to cover off a previous budget overspend. This is devastating for our doctors. Members across Northern Ireland are pressing us to take much more radical action. And at our recent junior doctor events, we got the message loud and clear that any incoming government has to fix pay, a view that's shared across the profession. We've written to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland and our own local party leaders to underscore this. Just like their colleagues across the rest of the UK, doctors in Northern Ireland need and deserve a pay rise this year. We are hopeful that an assembly will resume later this year. We need an assembly to resume later this year, if not much sooner. We need a minister there to make the important decisions. And if there is additional finance as part of that resumption, it needs to be allocated on a phased basis. We cannot have a situation again where we have a non-recurrent lump sum given to be spent in year. This leads to ineffective and inefficient spending and does not solve any of our problems. Despite these challenges, all of our committees continue to work very hard for all of our members. Our consultant committee has been successful with the introduction of the rate card, and I've had some very robust conversations with the trusts and with the department over ensuring it is followed. Our SAS committee has made frustrating progress with the introduction of their new contract and are also still pursuing their appointment of their postgraduate dean. We also continue the four-nation conversations that we heard earlier and debate on primary care doctors, and we're closely aligned with the UK position. Northern Ireland Students' Committee has had success in getting some costs for placements to be covered, but we're very concerned that a recent survey has shown a significant number have said that they intend to look for work outside of Northern Ireland in the future. General practice is really struggling. We've had multiple contract handbacks. We're now up to 16, amounting to over 5% of our population, and these just keep coming. We've huge financial and staffing pressures, and we stick out like a sore thumb with no indemnity solution. If we don't see a changed trajectory we will see rapid and total collapse, not only of our GP services, but of our entire health service. Our GP committee is currently looking at different options and models with the hope that we can prevent that. I'm determined to include a positive somewhere in amongst all of this, and can I record our huge appreciation to the Pensions Committee for their work and the recently announced changes. The tax-related changes will all apply to doctors in Northern Ireland, and that is massively helpful. The scheme changes, however, are devolved, and we still need a minister and an executive to approve them. Another positive, we also have an amazing team in BMA in Belfast, led by our National Director, Claire Armstrong, and our full team, and our thanks very much to them for their sterling work. We have managed to maintain a very high profile with our members, with our politicians, and with our department officials, and an effective media presence as well. And we've very much led from the front to protect our members in such difficult times. So apologies if I am so negative, but this is where we are in Northern Ireland. The tone is always set from the top, and we have no top. We've talked for many years about learned helplessness in the health environment, but we've trumped that in Northern Ireland with a forced helplessness. Despite this, we will do all we can to engage, to influence, and to change our health service for the benefit of our doctors and for our patients. And just to conclude, Tom gave me two pieces of advice for this speech. The first was not to make us sound quite as bad as we actually are, and I think I've probably failed on that. The second was that if I couldn't do that, at least to make everyone else feel a little bit better, that you're not quite as bad as us. Thank you, RB.